This is use Nagios to monitor your public cloud. We'll do the Q&A at the end. Please welcome Matt Bruzek.
Hi, thanks for coming to my talk. I'm here to talk about monitoring Ubuntu services in the public cloud. I'm not a professional speaker, and when I get nervous, I talk a little fast, so you guys will be ready in time for the bus. We won't have any problem missing the bus here, so yeah, no worries. All right. So we'll go to the next slide. All right. So I'm sorry to break it to you, but our infrastructures are only getting more complex. I mean, we have bare metal servers years ago. We have virtualization, we have clouds, now we have containers. It's going to get more complex, and doing it by hand is not the way to do it. So you need more monitoring with more complexity because more things could go wrong. So just by a show of hands, how many people are deploying Nagios or their servers with an automation system, configuration management like Chef? Or Puppet, okay, all right. Ansible, and there's other ones, but that's good. You should be, because automation is easier to get down and manage. If you're not, you hopefully will be soon. All right. So my point to that was everybody has a slightly different way to create their monitoring. I call it a snowflake, right? Everybody's got a very complicated, different infrastructure, and they create a really good snowflake monitoring. With Nagios, we can share plugins, but can you share your deployment method for how you deploy and update Nagios to get that in the configuration? And in this talk, I'm talking about Nagios Core. We don't use Nagios XI right now at Canonical, but we do use Nagios Core, and I'm going to show you how we do that. So, okay, let's see. So, if there was a change to your network or your server or your cloud provider, how flexible is your automation tool? Now, let's say, for example, you're a shop that deploys on Amazon AWS, and in the distant future, it's cheaper to deploy on Google or some other cloud platform. Could you make that switch easily? Could that be something that you change? Now, I know many of you may not be might not be deploying in the cloud. So if you got your wish, and you got shiny new servers, how fast could you roll those out, and would those new servers be deployed easily with your automation solution? Typically, configuration management tools, there might be some complexity in there for leading to inflexibility, but hopefully not. Can we continue to have our artisanal infrastructures? I was just talking with somebody last night that they get a lot of false positives when they take a machine out of service because Nagios is still monitoring for that machine. So, can we with the increased complexity, more things can go wrong. More things, and especially when there's a problem, when there's a fire drill, and somebody comes to you and says, "Look, this isn't working." We often tend to try to fix the problem and then automate it later. The fixing the problem is the priority, not the automation of that fix. And so then you get small changes in your infrastructure that are hard to maintain over time. So I just I called that one out. So if you had to take a machine out of rotation, does that same process remove it from monitoring? If it does, that's great. Some of you are using your configuration management tools. If not, it probably should, because you don't want to have to do separate processes to take a system out of service. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Okay, so wouldn't it be great if the services just knew how to monitor themselves and they said, oh yeah, I can hook up with Nagios and that would be awesome. I mean, if you could say, if MySQL just said, oh, I know how to monitor myself, just plug me in, tell me where the Nagios Core is, and I'll set it up. All right, so it's time to go to our demo. Many of you are DevOps or operations people. I'm sure a lot of people come to you and say, look, I need you to monitor my new solution. And you may not know what this is. Big data is a buzzword these days, and people are deploying big data solutions. And so your boss comes to you and says, I need to deploy some big data. I need you to monitor that. So we'll switch to my demo here. All right, so first of all, we'll start here. This is something you should all be familiar with by now. This is Nagios deployed in Amazon on Ubuntu, monitoring itself. It's just local monitors monitoring self because it doesn't know about anything else yet. I did this just to get this. I did this before the demo just to get this out of the way so it didn't take a while to deploy this. But let's go to your big data solution here that we have to monitor. Oh, yeah. All right, so we'll go to the next tab here. This is actually the Juju GUI. Some of my colleagues have developed a complex big data solution. This one uses Apache Hadoop to do some ingestion of our syslog data, and it pipes it through Flume, and then Spark can run some analysis on it. There's a Zeppelin notebook, and Spark can do some analysis on the big data. We have other solutions that ingest from Twitter or other sources just enough. This one I picked because we could get some data fast. Probably would have been a good idea to use Nagios log analyzer or the log system, but this is what we have, and you can see that there's about 10 services up here, and every service is interconnected with at least one other service. So this is a fairly complex solution, and the designers of this solution, this model, they didn't take into account monitoring at this point. So they were just big data scientists. They're just getting a big data solution set up, and they don't have monitoring. So how do we add monitoring to something like that? And I'm going to help you. I'm going to do that right now. So live. So we have here the status window. I'll go over here. All right. So what we want to do is we want to tell the big data solution that we want to tell Nagios about the big data solution. And to do that, I'm going to put NRPE on all those services that we saw out there. So Juju add relation. I'm going to say NRPE. I've also pre-deployed an NRPE solution here. I'm going to put that on HDFS master. Okay. All right, so Juju add relation. I'm just going to call that back. I'm going to say the secondary name server. I want to put NRPE on that. So probably have to spell it right. Okay. Name node. See, it's a live demo. It doesn't all work. All right. I'm also going to add it to the compute slave. Now, the compute slave is a little unique, and I'll talk about that in a couple minutes here. There's actually 3 compute slaves that are in this model. You only see one icon for them, but there are 3 of them there. So NRPE is going to be installed 3 times on each of those servers. All right, so Flume, HDFS. and then this one is flume syslog. That takes in the syslog data, ingest it, and we're going to add relation with Spark and yarn master. All right, I'm doing this on the command line to punish you, but not really, but I'm doing this on the command line to show you that we have parity between our UI and the command line. I could easily go back here to the UI, and I could draw the lines here too. I just wanted to show that it has the ability to do that. So what I did here was I put in all the gray lines. They're gray for a reason. This is a subordinate service, but you can see that NRPE is deployed 7 times on these servers here. Okay, so I've deployed it to all the major servers here, except for the other subordinate services that have these little extra boxes there. So NRPE is what's going on in the background, and I can show that. What's going on in the background is NRPE is downloading and installing. It's already installed on these servers. So I'm going to do one more command. Juju, add relation. I'm going to tell Nagios about NRPE. And so what I'm doing here is I'm creating a relation between Nagios and NRPE. They have a special relationship where it goes to all the instances of the NRPE charm, and it will generate the Nagios configuration for all that. So we'll go back to our browser and check out. Whoops, that's not good. All right, we'll go back to the browser here and look at Nagios Core. You'll see that we do indeed have services and hosts showing up in the thing. They're pending. It's still working on updating and all that. But we are, just by relating them, we're able to take advantage of the NRPE local monitoring for each of these individual services. And we'll scroll down here. We've still got them coming in. So it's going to take a couple of seconds here to get that going. But I'll go back to the Juju GUI here. So let's see here. Zoom back out a little bit. There we go. All right, so this is the whole picture here. And through this, I could draw relations. We could monitor, for instance, we can monitor the actual GUI, our UI, is a charm itself. So you could monitor the GUI there. And then I have to hit commit and confirm, which is why I didn't do it in the GUI in the first place. I just did it on the command line because that's much faster. But that's all it takes to monitor different services in your model. We'll go back here. Just to show that this is live, this is the Zeppelin tutorial. It's kind of like a notebook that you can do analytics on your big data. I ran some, and I got some pretty graphs here with different visualizations of the syslog data. But we're interested in the monitoring part right now. So if I go back here and refresh, you'll see that we have all the hosts are up. I'm pretty sure that the services need some more time, but you'll see that the compute slave, like I talked about, compute slave only shows up with one icon in the Juju GUI, but there's actually 3 compute slaves in this cluster. And if you wanted to scale this up, we could add units to the compute slave, and Juju would just provision a new server, install the Hadoop compute engine on that slave, and then you'd have a little more powerful Hadoop solution. But there's HDFS, there's syslog. Here's the GUI that I just put on there. Since I directly connected that to Nagios, it doesn't have the NRPE charm installed, so it doesn't have the local monitoring setup for the GUI. So you'll just see SSH here for the GUI. But you'll see that these local monitors are some of them are okay, some of them are still pending. It's going to take a minute or two to get everything coming back. But we do have some greens, hopefully more greens. All of them will go green in a minute, but that's what we've got. So what did I show? I showed a solution that we had that didn't have monitoring beforehand. And all we did was relate it to the NRPE charm and relate that to Nagios, and you got a configuration in Nagios Core. And this is all done in Amazon. This is all live. It won't be after this presentation because it's expensive to run 10 different servers. If you're a server person and you want to know exactly what machines are which, there is that option on this GUI. You can see that some of these are different size. This is a base image. It's a 1.7 gigabyte and 8 for RAM and 8 gigabytes of hard disk. But on Amazon, that's not big enough to run some of these compute slaves. So we gave this one 3.8 gigabytes of RAM, and there's some down here with 7.5 gigs. Those are just bigger instances, and they cost more money. And you can see that in this way. So there's different configuration on each of these. So if you want to send Nagios some additional config file, you click on Nagios, you can go to the configuration tab, and you can say, this is the additional configuration that I want to put in there. If you have your own config file or something that's not standard, the not standard way that we monitor here, you can throw that in. All of these are open source projects. You can branch them and edit them to your needs. So, all right, so we'll go back to the presentation. The next slide here. This is just for full disclosure. This is what I did before the demo. We have a thing. Juju has a notion of deploying all those 10 charms. It was all in what we call a bundle, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that is all deployable in one single step. Juju Quick Start, and the name of this bundle is Real-Time Syslog Analytics. By default, all of the Amazon instances are firewalled. You can't get to them. So Juju Expose opens the firewall for certain ports that are defined in Zeppelin, which is the notebook that we looked at. I also deployed NRPE and Nagios, and then I exposed Nagios as well because that's also behind the firewall until you expose it. All right, and then these are the demo. This is the instructions that I just gave it. Just to recap, add relation for these 7 items, and then I added the NRPE to Nagios. That's all we did. But I was just trying to illustrate how easy it is to set up monitoring in a cloud environment, specifically for Juju. But Ron Burgundy doesn't believe me. So a bit about the name. Juju is a word that literally means magic. And we call it a service orchestration tool. And just like an orchestra, we're trying to get the services to play together. It's a little bit more advanced than a configuration management tool. It follows the service through the life cycle. It doesn't just install and configure it. It talks about connecting the services together. And that's the real power of the service orchestration, is the connection between the services. We just saw relations happening. Services that are deployed in the same charm can do things like clustering. They could do, if that's what a service could handle. It can also do scaling up and scaling down dynamically, and events get fired, and the charms, or the model will know how to respond to that. So, all right. So I spoke about a language in the cloud. Juju tries to model these cloud deployments in different ways, and we have a language that we have. So when we create a service, we deploy it. right? When we add relation, we're connecting it, we're telling them about each other. We don't have to hard code in values, we don't have to give static IP addresses. When you relate Nagios and NRPE, they both know about each other, they both know their IP addresses, and they exchange the information that they need to know about each other, like probably the IP address, where to get the configuration from, what's there. Juju set is a setting configuration on a charm. As I mentioned before, we have an extra config. You can put in your own custom configuration file. And then add unit will scale up. MySQL, for instance, will do master-slave replication if you scale it up. And it knows about the other ones, so it automatically will set that up. And then Juju expose will turn off the firewall in public clouds for those instances. All right. All right, so we're trying to define a model that you can share with others and then you could use on different clouds. That way we can monitor literally every service in every charm. So how does Juju work? What was happening in the behind the scenes is Juju provisions a server in the cloud, and it preloads that instance with the minimal cloud image. And then the image that we have from the stream is updated weekly. It's got fresh security updates. So in this instance, I was deploying trusty instances, and every week we have somebody on our team that goes and updates those cloud images with just the security updates. So when you're downloading, when you're deploying these charms, you're getting the most up-to-date, secure cloud instance possible. They're full instances. You can go on there and run apt-get update or install other packages and SSH to them and to your heart's content. But what Juju's doing is it's provisioning it with the minimal cloud image, and then it's installing the software on top of that. So the image gets started and installed via cloud init, and then the charm responds to events that Juju sends to it. There's a Juju agent running on each of these instances, and that is what responds to the events that happen. And there's events such as install or config or start, and we'll get into those in a couple of minutes here. But the charm can respond to anything that Juju sends to it. And that's the power of the service orchestration. It's not just configuration management when it's done, configuring and installing, that's it. It's going through the whole life cycle. So as Chef has cookbooks, Ansible has manifests, or Ansible has playbooks, Puppet has manifests, Juju has charms. Charms are our domain-specific language, if you will. So it's basically it's a set of instructions that follows the life cycle of the service. And what do I mean by life cycle? Install, configure, start, relate, scale up or down, stop and destroy. That's the life cycle that we're talking about. And those are mostly the events that we're responding to. But the charms have the operational intelligence to do what's right in those events. It doesn't make sense for all charms to implement all those events, but in most cases, you'll need to do many of them. So the operational intelligence and how to monitor. I mean, every charm could have that baked in. They don't right now, but they don't need to because you have the NRPE one. My friend refers to it as an executable white paper. We're taking the experts and how they install, Nagios or NRPE, and we're taking that and distilling it into a charm and doing it in a industry best practices way. And each charm is its own software project. We can version them. You can refer to older versions. They're a complete software project. So what are charms? I mean, basically we're looking at a collection of files and directories. They can be written in any language. I've written charms in Bash, Python. You can write them in Go or any of the languages that will run in the cloud. Really anything. They just need to respond to those hooks, and the way that they can do that is just being an executable file in a specific name in a specific directory. So Juju will fire those events, and those hooks will respond with their intelligence to do this, to do what those events mean to that service. Charms are connectable. As I showed before, in this case, MediaWiki is obviously a Wikipedia kind of service, but it needs MySQL, or it needs a database, excuse me. So you can relate those two, right? But they're also interchangeable. MariaDB is a fork of MySQL, and it also implements the database interface. So you can relate MediaWiki to MySQL or MariaDB. It doesn't, the charm doesn't matter, the charm doesn't care as long as it gets the database. And what happens on a database relation is it goes and creates a table for that charm, and it gives it some credentials, a username and a password to access the database. And of course, it sends over the IP address of the database. So since MariaDB and MySQL are so similar, it really doesn't matter to MediaWiki which one it has. It can function equally with both of them. Charms are not only Ubuntu. They were in the beginning, but we do have support for CentOS workloads. And believe it or not, we have support for Windows workloads. There's a great company called Cloudbase that partnered with us, and they wrote charms in PowerShell that deploy on Hyper-V. So you can deploy Windows workloads with Juju from Windows or from Linux using the Cloudbase software that they've partnered with us on. So CentOS, Ubuntu, and Windows. All right, so charms are a building block. They're just a start. Rarely does anybody solve a solution or have a solution that's just one service, right? These are building blocks we try to make with bigger solutions. The charm store is a bit of a misnomer. We don't sell any charms. They're all free and open source software, or most of them are. We do have some partners that you download the binary and put it in a charm, and then you can deploy it. But we curate the charm store for quality and reliability, so that when you download this charm, you know that it'll work, because you're building something bigger with it. The Nagios and NRPE charm can monitor every single charm in Juju, and it's because of a very specific and special relationship. There's something on those charms that can talk to any one of the charms, and so you can literally monitor any of these charms. Now, you can't do it expertly like everybody here does, but you can relate that to every charm in Juju and monitor them. So there's always room for improvement. It's an open source project. You guys are willing to, we would love pull requests or experts in the field to say, we're not doing this right. But how do we make bigger model? How do we make a model? We build it with charms, and we make a bundle. A bundle is just essentially a collection of charms, all their configuration, all their relations, and then there's something else called constraints. So if you need more memory for this one, or you need a different architecture, and you want to run on Power, you can run on, charms will run on Power, ARM architecture. So the bundle will encapsulate all that into a static file. It's a YAML format, just a markdown or a text format, and then you can deploy that bundle with one single command. As I showed in the demo, that bundle was what we deployed to get that big data solution with those 10 different charms and all of them related to different other services. So bundles, again, collection of charms, their relations and configuration, deploy them in one step. It allows for people to share. You can have, I can give a bundle to somebody else and deploy it. They can deploy it just as easily as I could. Okay, so, all right, I think I skipped one. All right, so in Juju, the model is portable. You can move your application to another cloud. Once you model your application or your solution in a bundle, you can deploy that to multiple different clouds. Here's an example. The demo was done on Amazon today, but I could deploy that same bundle to the Google Compute Engine. If you have a private cloud at your on-premises, you can do OpenStack. It's kind of funny, we have OpenStack charms as well, so you can deploy OpenStack on OpenStack, a little bit of inception there, but most of the time, there's Windows Azure, HP Cloud is an OpenStack provider, so that works very well, but any OpenStack will work. DigitalOcean, that's very fast, cheap instances, and Joyent. Let's see. So, I mean, we're giving you the flexibility. You can use the clouds you want to or that you need to. And there's also bare metal. So if you don't have a cloud, you don't use the public clouds for your solution, there's something called Metal as a Service, where it'll make your data center look like a cloud. It'll make your data center a big pool of resources that Juju can provision just like a cloud. It'll go through and lay down a new operating system on there. It'll bring them up and shut them down as needed. It'll power them off and everything. It'll pretend that it's a cloud. Juju can use MAS to provision bare metal. And when I say we have all the OpenStack services charmed up, most of the time people will deploy OpenStack on bare metal instead of in another virtualization technology, so that they can get the benefit of the hardware rather than in virtualization. We have Linux containers. We have vSphere. I use KVM a great deal on my laptop. So what I'll do is I'll model a deployment on my laptop through KVM. My computer can look like a mini little cloud. And then once I get it kind of where I want it, I can deploy it out on these other clouds. But it's a great development feature. Also Linux containers, I use that quite a bit. So it's roughly 4 times faster to create an instance of Linux containers than it is on like Amazon. So it's a lot faster for me to iterate and create the model, and then I'll deploy it on a regular cloud after that. So this is just a list of these are actual links to our documentation on how to set this up with Juju. They'll be available after the talk. And if you don't see your cloud listed up here, we do have manual provisioning. If you can talk to your servers with SSH, you can deploy it with Juju. The manual provisioning, as it says, is a more manual process. There's more involved, but it can be done. It takes a little bit of magic away when you have to do manual, but these other clouds, you can request instances, and it's automatic. Okay, so the portability. I said that we're giving you portability. What does it give you? It changes the paradigm. You can go to on the cloud that runs your application best, and best can mean price, it can mean performance, or it can be whatever is strategic for you. Once you model these solutions, you can run them on any of these clouds, and then it gives you a lot more options. Finally, you can create a model. You can create these models and solutions and then deploy them in reproducible ways. And again, you can monitor every single service in Juju with Nagios because of that special relation that Nagios has, the Nagios charm has, that it can talk to any of these charms. So, More information, it's our website. We're a GitHub open source project. The mailing list is the best way to get involved with the project. Our founder, Mark Shuttleworth, reads the mailing list regularly and responds to customers' questions or concerns personally. So he does it quite a bit. And the Nagios charm and the NRPE charm can be found on our webpage at those links. So I did promise to do Nagios Core 4. If you noticed on the demo, it was 3.1. That's because the Nagios charm only installs from the Debian archive. I know most of you here are CentOS or Red Hat users, but the state of things right now is we only have Nagios Core 3 and Nagios plugins 1.5 in the repository. So installing Nagios Core 4 is a manual process, and manual doesn't work. But I didn't quite get it all the way finished, so I didn't demo it because it's not as good as the Nagios 3 charm. But I do have, let's see here, I do have Nagios Core 4 running on Ubuntu in Amazon here, and it's off to the side here. Let's see here if I can go there. So this is Core 4.1.1 with the plugins 2.1, I think, and it's monitoring itself with local hosts or local service monitoring. But I haven't got the magic part in with the relations as good as the other one just yet. But this is for, they've got some cool visualizations with the map and, but unfortunately it's just this one unit, so it's not very interesting of a map. But I've got this in my personal namespace. There's an idea on charms. When you push them to a repository, they show up in the charm store right away under your personal namespace, but then you can get them reviewed and have them in a recommended namespace, and it's a shorter URI, and it gives you higher search results and things like that. So I'm working on this to get this one in, but I'm not an expert on Nagios like you guys are, so I'm stumbling through it a little bit. I couldn't get it done before the talk today, and but it is running on Ubuntu in the cloud. I've got that part figured out. I just need to work on the relations and getting those working better. So, well, that's all I had. If you want, I'll take questions or comments or.
So we're getting started on getting to know Juju on the organization. So if some of my questions are kind of not expert, if I want to, so you showed like how to deploy Nagios, and you used 3.1, right?
Yep.
So if I have all this running in my cloud, be it like off-premises or in-premises or some kind of private cloud, if I decide to go and then I want to get everything the same way I had before, but I want to use Nagios 4.1 now.
Yep.
And after your charm is complete.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do I do that? I have to go back in Juju and redeploy it, everything?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So here, I can show you this model here. Now that I've added monitoring to this solution, once you're in the GUI here and you've got it the way you want it, everything's working great. You go down here to the bottom, and I don't know if it shows up on the screen. Yes, it does. There's an export feature, and I'll show you the ugly truth of a bundle. Let's just put this in downloads here. So it downloads it to a flat file for you. If it's in the GUI, if it's modeled here in the GUI, it'll download it to a flat file. So if like you said, you wanted to replace 3 with 4, what I would do here is take off I would take this one off, and I'd put on my Nagios 4 charm right here. And then, you can add a relation from here to NRPE, and I would give it this monitor's relation. And then you can delete this service or take that off with the relations, and then export that to a file. Excuse me. And this bundle file, again, is YAML. It's going to be long, and I can't change the font size on gedit, so sorry about that. But this gives the information of where I get these charms from. It talks about annotations, like where to put them on the GUI. But here's constraints. Like this one needs 7 gigabytes of memory, right? And I don't know if they have any of these with and then down here is all the relations. These are, the relation is, it's an array format in YAML. This one goes to this one goes to this one, things like that. And then here's the machines that you can provision, right? This one's got the 7 gigabytes of memory. It's got a higher CPU power than the normal ones. This is a default instance here on Amazon. CPU core of 1, 1.7 gigabytes of memory, and you can, but this is all a bundle is, and it's deployable in one step. It's not too long. It's 180 lines, but you can hand edit these. Once you get a bundle, if you want to replace it, you just want the new charm in there, you can edit that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I have another quick question.
Sure.
So you mentioned that there's a bunch of charms that work on CentOS as well, right?
We have CentOS. We have CentOS enabled. We don't have any charms out there for it yet. It's just brand new, but we do have the enablement. I've seen CentOS workloads being deployed, but I don't know if there was any in the charm store at this time.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, my question was going to be
when could you see them?
Yeah, if there was like
Yep.
how different it will be deploying in CentOS from normal Red Hat, if there was experience.
From normal Red Hat?
Yeah.
Well, CentOS is, it's a little different operating system. They both use Yum, right? I don't know. We don't have Red Hat capability right now. And I don't know if that's on the roadmap or not. But it would be different than Juju because you would have to write this with different commands, right? In Ubuntu, we do apt-get update and apt-get install. On CentOS, it would be yum update or yum, I don't know what the commands are, right? But there would be a slightly different charm, and you could only deploy that one on clouds that have CentOS support. Amazon has it. If you set up with MAZ, if you turn your lab into the bare metal, you can deploy to CentOS, but it doesn't work on every provider for CentOS, so you can't do CentOS on I don't think they have the support on Google or DigitalOcean or things like that, but you would deploy a CentOS cloud image, very similar to Ubuntu, very small cloud image, and the Cloud Init would run. It would install a few things like the keys and a Juju agent, and then you could run commands with the charms just like that. Very similar.
Okay.
All right, thanks for the question.
Any other questions? All right. Matt Bruzek, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.